news. I'm Amit Shah. Let's get straight to our top story today. After the Health Ministry on Thursday said that there were early indications of COVID cases plateauing in some areas and that the trend needs to be monitored. Senior WHO official Poonam Ketupal Singh has now said that the risk persists and focus must be on reducing transmission and implementing situation-specific measures. Now, speaking to PTI, Singh said, and I quote, "We need to continue to remain vigilant. Our focus must be on reducing transmission, implementing situation-specific public health and social measures, and increasing vaccine coverage. That's the way forward for all countries in the ongoing pandemic." End quote. India has reported 2.35 lakh new COVID cases and 871 deaths in the last 24 hours. The daily positivity rate has seen a marginal decrease to 13.39% as well. It was slightly over 15% yesterday. Mumbai has recorded 1,411 new COVID cases in the last 24 hours. Over the last 1 week, we've seen similar numbers being reported from Mumbai. Delhi has reported 4,483 new COVID cases. The positivity rate is at 7.41%. Karnataka has reported 33,337 new COVID cases. Yesterday, Karnataka had reported 31,198 new COVID cases, so a slight increase there. Bengaluru is reporting a large share of those numbers. 16,586 new COVID cases being reported from Bengaluru in the last 24 hours. In the meantime, different states are lifting restrictions. We'll start off with Karnataka. Karnataka has announced that it will now lift its night curfew and other restrictions based on a report of the Technical Advisory Committee. Now, it says that schools will be allowed to take offline classes for standard 1st to 9th in Bengaluru. Revenue Minister R. Ashok made a statement saying that restrictions will be lifted, and they are being lifted because of an increase in recovery rate. He also went on to say that public transport, pubs, restaurants, government offices can now operate at full seating capacity. In the meantime, cinema halls and multiplexes have been allowed to operate at 50% capacity. Marriages can be held with up to 300 people in open venues and 200 people in closed venues. Pune has decided to also reopen schools and colleges from February 1st. Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar has announced that schools and colleges in Maharashtra's Pune will reopen. Mr. Ajit Pawar told reporters, and I quote, "The final decision to send children to school and colleges will be on parents, but the administration will reopen schools," end quote. So there is a slight flexibility there. Colleges and schools for classes 9 and up will be full time, while schools for classes 1 to 8 will be half day, so that lunchtime gets excluded and students won't have to take off their masks to eat. Haryana has also relaxed its COVID curbs. All universities, colleges, and schools for classes 10 to 12 and coaching or training institutes, both government and private, have also been allowed to open from the 1st of February. All cinema halls, theatres, multiplexes are allowed to open with 50% seating capacity while following COVID norms. Meanwhile, in Delhi, hundreds of gym owners on Saturday staged a protest towards Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's residence to oppose the DTMA's decision to keeping gyms and fitness centers closed, even as COVID cases are declining in the national capital. Earlier, if you remember, Delhi had also lifted its weekend curfew and also allowed restaurants, bars, and cinema halls to operate with 50% capacity. Moving on to other news coming in from across the country, moving on from COVID right now. According to a report by the New York Times, the Indian government, and this is what the report says, the Indian government bought Israeli spyware Pegasus in 2017 as part of a $2 billion package for weapons, including a missile system. Now, the report also talks about how the software was used globally to target journalists, activists, among others. It also says that under a set of new deals licensed by the Israeli Ministry of Defense, Pegasus was provided to Poland, Hungary, and India and other countries. Until now, neither the Indian government nor the Israeli government has admitted to any of these allegations. There has been no response so far from the center relating to this New York Times report. The opposition, however, has said multiple things. Addressing a press conference, for instance, leader of opposition in Rajya Sabha, Mallikarjun Kharge, said Congress has raised the issue in Parliament last year and will continue to do so. Senior Congress leader Rahul Gandhi took to Twitter and said, and I quote, Modi government bought Pegasus to spy on our primary democratic institutions, politicians and public. Government functionaries, opposition leaders, armed forces, judiciary, all were targeted by these phone tappings. This is treason. The Modi government has committed treason. Moving on now, according to the Indian Meteorological Department, Delhi, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, and Haryana will witness surface winds between 15 to 25 kilometers per hour starting the 29th of January and will continue till the 1st of February. However, the conditions will begin to abate gradually post 30th of January, is what the IMD has said. In the meantime, eastern states of West Bengal, Bihar, and Jharkhand will receive rainfall with the possibility of hailstorms between the 2nd of February and the 4th of February. Also in the news, the center has told the Delhi High Court that just because other countries, and primarily Western countries, have criminalized marital rape does not necessarily mean India should follow them blindly. Now, this comes after there have been several pleas seeking to criminalize marital rape in the country. In a written submission, the center has said, and I quote, India has its own unique problems due to various factors like literacy, lack of financial empowerment of the majority of females, mindset of the society, vast diversity, poverty, etc. And these should be considered carefully before criminalizing marital rape. End quote. Now, reiterating its earlier stand of 2017, the Union government has said that there is a vast diversity in the cultures of Indian states and that it is necessary to lead the state governments in the matter to know their opinion to avoid any complications at a later stage. On to some political news now, most of it coming in from Uttar Pradesh. Samajwadi Party President Akhilesh Yadav has said that forthcoming elections will not throw a surprise result, but claimed that the real surprise will be in Gujarat assembly polls due later this year. He also claimed that the people of Uttar Pradesh have already given their verdict and the Bharatiya Janata Party is nervous. He went on to say, and I quote, the people of Uttar Pradesh have given their verdict. No surprise is going to come here. Farmers, young traders, people of all sections have made up their mind that the government is going to be formed by those in the Samajwadi Party alliance, end quote. Now, elections for the 403 assembly constituencies is in Uttar Pradesh and it will be held in 7 phases starting the 10th of February. In the meantime, while addressing a campaign in Uttar Pradesh's Muzaffarnagar, Union Home Minister Amit Shah has said, and I quote, Akhilesh Yadav and Jayant Chaudhary are together only till counting. If their SP government is formed, then Azam Khan will sit in the government and Jayant Bhai will be out. Their candidates list can say what will happen after elections. Now, pointing at Akhilesh Yadav, he said, and I quote, today I have come to give our figures in a public program. If you have the courage, declare the figures of your regime in a press conference tomorrow, end quote. Now, this comes a day after Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav, along with his Rashtriya Lokdal ally Jayant Chaudhary, launched a sharp attack against the BJP. And as promised, we give you one piece of environment news every single day. This is your news for the day. According to the World Economic Forum, construction and operation of buildings are responsible for 38% of global emissions. Now, the WEF has said that in order to limit the global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees Celsius, there is an urgent need to find solutions to accelerate decarbonization of the urban built environment. And the WEF also said that with over half the world's population living in cities and producing over 70% of carbon emissions, cities play a key role in combating climate change. The report also has been written in collaboration with Accenture and proposes a more holistic decision-making approach. Moving on to news coming in from across the world right now, US President Joe Biden has said on Friday that he will be moving US troops to Eastern Europe and European and NATO countries in the near term as tensions rise over Russia's military buildup on the borders of Ukraine. Now, if you remember, the Pentagon has already placed 8,500 troops on standby in response to Russia's build-up over Ukraine's border. Joe Biden told reporters, and I quote, "I'll be moving troops to Eastern Europe and the NATO countries in the near term, not too many," end quote. Moscow, in the meantime, insists that it does not plan to attack, but reports say that they've stationed more than 1 lakh combat troops on the borders of Ukraine. In the meantime, the US has warned a Russian invasion of Ukraine would be horrific for both sides while calling for a diplomatic solution. Now, speaking at the Pentagon on Friday, US General Mark Milley has said, and I quote, "If that was unleashed on Ukraine, it would be significant, very significant, and it would result in a significant amount of casualties. It would be horrific. It will be terrible," end quote. And also, there's news that's coming today that says that, and this is a report by Reuters, which says that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will visit Ukraine next week, and a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin will be done in a bid to avoid bloodshed. Now, a spokesperson from Mr. Johnson's office has said in a statement, and I quote, "The Prime Minister is determined to accelerate diplomatic efforts and ramp up deterrence to avoid bloodshed in Europe. He will reiterate the need for Russia to step back and engage diplomatically when he speaks to President Putin this week," end quote. There were no details, however, of when or where this trip would happen. Also, President Vladimir Putin has said that the West has ignored Russia's security concerns amid fears that Russia could invade Ukraine. Now, the US rejected a key Moscow demand that NATO rule out Ukraine joining the defense alliance, but insisted that it was offering Russia, and I quote, "a diplomatic path." Now, it is Mr. Putin's first comment on the crisis after the US rejected Russia's main demand. He told Mr. Macron that he would study the US counter proposals closely before deciding on any further action. And so far, while all of these developments have been happening, Russia has maintained and denied that it is planning any sort of attack on Ukraine. On to sports news right now. World number one Ash Barty has become the first Australian woman to win Australian Open singles title in 44 years. And the 25-year-old defeated first-time Grand Slam finalist Daniel Collins of USA. Barty won with a scoreline of 6-3, 7-6, 7-2 in 1 hour and 27 minutes. Now, we leave you with one piece of good news. Of course, this is the second piece of good news after the sports news. For the first time, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory has a female director. Now, this is according to CNN, which has said that she's a geochemist and space scientist, and her name is Lori Lesson. And she will serve as the director for Jet Propulsion Laboratory, as well as the vice president of the California Institute of Technology. Now, she is the first woman president in the university's 150-year history. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Have a happy weekend. Good night.